Hello. So this is the first, I'm going to try and do a few short videos just looking at certain themes within the report Case for Change that McAllister and his team have put together. And that's because I keep reading things saying, we can see these positive things in the report, and the report does have things in that people will hold on to. But what's important, I would argue, is the underlying message that's actually woven through. And just to show, it's such a long report, just to show how some of that is constructed. So we're just going to have a quick look at poverty, which I sort of mentioned in my brief blog for the Alliance. So here you can see that it starts on this bit part on page 22, poverty and deprivation. And says that chances of children living in poverty are significantly lower, living safely, significantly lower than their peers. And actually what this doesn't say is that 25% of children live in poverty. So 1 in 4 children live in poverty, and that figure is not here. So what's not said in this report is hugely important. And then it talks about evidence. And if you can see here, you'll see Paul Bywater's name cited, Public Health England, Bywaters, and different people writing. And you've just got in these brief, very short, sometimes just 2 sentences, looking beyond the immediate family context, local deprivation, income inequality, ethnic density of different groups are all associated with demand for services. So when people don't have the things that other people in our country have, so some areas are, have people who have got, well-paid employment, good resources within their communities, and other areas are deprived of that, deprived because our government choose to not invest in certain parts of the country. This is structural. So what happens in social work is that we're often meeting, at the point of when those things impact on individuals, may impact on their lives and therefore their relationships, etc. So the government will sometimes, want us to focus in a certain way on that and look at the blame or the tension that's created then between individuals and social workers going into families. However, individuals and social workers find themselves either working together in harmony or in tension, and either way, because they don't have their needs met, they don't have the resources to draw on within those communities, because that's what is structural. And here in this paragraph it kind of goes on about the acceptance of this significant impact of deprivation should lead us away from framing differences as variations and instead frame it as child welfare inequalities. So not that some local authorities do better than others, or some are beacons and yada yada yada, that some are held back from the starting line. They've got barriers and hurdles which are impossible to jump over because they're built so high. And they're so, the foundations are so deeply set into the ground because they've been going for years. That's what we're dealing with. And it, the framing of it in that way, I'm assuming this is still Bywaters, is arguing this could be really positive for policy. Let's take this on board and let's see what we can do positively about it, rather than treating poverty as a kind of wallpaper that becomes invisible. We stop even seeing it. And a note that the majority of families living in poverty do not maltreat their children, and maltreatment is not exclusive to families living in poverty. So most of this page is laying something out that's, most of us would find very difficult to disagree with. But then, let's see what happens. So here we have the review speaking. Now, I don't know how this report was put together, but to me, it almost seems like perhaps, a civil servant laid out the, all the basic information, argued what should go in and how it should be presented. And then at the end of this page, is this the end of the section? It indeed is. At the end of this section, the review speaks. And what does the review say? The review rejects the notion that a contributory causal link leaves the children's social care system powerless. Well, that's marvellous for an independent review to do that. Would one think that's what the government would say? And it goes on. The fact that services can either deepen these inequalities or can alleviate them should grip us. Should grip us? Should grip us. Very odd language. Anyone concerned with social justice who is working in children's social care needs to take responsibility for leading a system that has agency and power to tackle these inequalities. Okay, so goodness knows who the person was whose pen or little typing fingers came out to do this last two sentences. But what these two sentences say is basically no, government funding and entrenched poverty doesn't make you powerless. You need to take responsibility, you practitioners and people in social care, for leading a system that has agency and power to tackle these inequalities. Now, you don't have the power or the agency to be saying to the government, well, we'd like an independent review of that, rather than somebody who has been working, running a DfE and large business, global business supported social work program, which produces people who are going to get jobs in other perhaps civil servant positions or wherever they go. We want somebody who is actually minded to hear evidence from a broad sector, and certainly independent evidence, which is has weight and regard at an international level. And what we have here is the review, whoever picked up this page to throw their comments down, basically saying the government is washing its hands off that. Now, if you're in a position where you're supporting this report or this review, if you're looking in the pages for the bits that you need, for the people that you represent, for your groups, you're going to find those in this report. You're going to, if I was looking for, does this government talk about poverty? Does it talk about structural injustice? Yes. But what the report is, and then what the review, the people who are writing this, the people who are spearheading it think, I'm afraid, are two different things. And this is the one page that stood out for me that showed that very clearly. I'll do more of these.